Someone is testing you right now. And the most dangerous part? You're probably failing. Not because you're not smart enough, not because you're weak, but because psychological tests are designed to be invisible. They don't feel like tests. They feel like normal conversation, like a compliment, like a pause, like someone sharing something personal. By the time you realize what just happened, the result has already been recorded. So here are the 7 signals that you're being psychologically tested, and what to do when you catch them. Here's what these tests have in common. None of them feel like tests. Every single one targets one specific vulnerability: your need for approval, your fear of conflict, your instinct to reciprocate. Once you see the pattern, you can choose your response. Let's go. Signal 1. The compliment trap. Someone gives you an unusually generous compliment. "You're the most perceptive person I know. Honestly, you're better at this than anyone I've worked with." And they wait. What they're waiting for is whether you immediately deflect, deny, or over-explain. If you do, you've just revealed that you don't fully believe the compliment, which means your self-image is available for them to shape. The test isn't whether you accept the compliment, it's whether you need it. People who are secure sit with a compliment without deflecting and without performing gratitude. They simply receive it. That stillness is what the test is actually looking for. Signal 2. The silence pause. Midway through a conversation, they stop. Not because they've finished a thought, deliberately to see who speaks first. Most people fill silence within 3 seconds. They add information they didn't plan to share, walk back a statement they were confident about, or offer something to make the other person comfortable. All of this is data. The silence pause reveals how much you need the other person's approval and how uncomfortable you are with uncertainty. The response that changes the dynamic is simple. Wait. Let the silence exist. The person who speaks first after a deliberate pause hands over more than they realize. Signal 3. The boundary probe. A small, almost reasonable overstep. They borrow something without asking. They reference something you told them in private. They arrive slightly late with no acknowledgement. They're not testing whether you notice, they're testing whether you say something. Most people don't. The overstep is just small enough to feel not worth addressing. But the pattern the other person learns is that your limits are negotiable. The boundary probe almost always escalates over time because the first non-response is read as permission. Naming it, calmly, without drama, resets the frame immediately. 3 down, 4 left. The next ones are harder to catch because they feel even more like normal conversation. Stay with me. Signal 4. The mirror test. They repeat your exact words back to you, slightly rephrased, and present them as their own observation. So, what you're saying is, this situation isn't really about the outcome, it's about the principle? When that's exactly what you said 2 minutes ago. What they're measuring is whether you notice and whether you react. If you don't notice, they now know you're not tracking the conversation carefully. If you do notice but say nothing, they know your boundaries around intellectual ownership are weak. If you notice and gently correct it, "Actually, that's what I said, yes." They know you're paying close attention without being confrontational. That last response is the one that earns respect. Signal 5. The Urgency Gambit. Artificial time pressure inserted into a decision that doesn't actually require speed. I need to know by end of day. This is the only window we have. If we don't decide now, the opportunity closes. The urgency gambit is designed to bypass deliberate reasoning and push you into an instinctive response, because instinctive responses are more revealing and easier to influence than considered ones. The tell is always the same. Genuine urgency has a reason. Manufactured urgency doesn't hold up when you ask for one. What specifically changes if we wait until tomorrow? Is the question that collapses a false deadline in seconds. Signal 6. The guilt audit. They describe a problem, their own difficulty, their own mistake, and watch to see whether you automatically take responsibility for it. I've been really struggling since our last conversation. Things haven't been the same since you brought that up. They're not necessarily asking you to apologize. They're watching whether your instinct is to absorb their discomfort as your fault. People who consistently pass the guilt audit hear the statement, express genuine concern, and ask what support looks like, without assuming causality that hasn't been established. "I'm sorry to hear that. What do you need?" is a full response. "I'm so sorry, was it something I did?" hands the audit to them. Now, signal 7, and this is the one that matters most. The trust anchor. They share something vulnerable, a fear, a past failure, a private difficulty, offered as though it's just between the two of you. And they wait to see what you do. This is the most sophisticated test on this list because it genuinely feels like connection. The impulse it triggers to reciprocate, to share something equally personal, is one of the deepest social instincts humans have. And that's exactly what's being measured. Not whether you care, but whether your trust can be purchased with apparent vulnerability. Real vulnerability in a relationship develops over time, through repeated small moments of reliability. Someone who offers a significant disclosure early isn't necessarily manipulating you, but they are, consciously or not, testing whether you'll open a door they can use later. The 7th signal is the most dangerous precisely because it feels like connection. But real connection doesn't test. Real connection asks. So the next time a conversation feels slightly off, when a compliment lands strangely, when the silence stretches just a beat too long, when someone shares something personal faster than the relationship should allow, you're not imagining it. You're being tested. And now you know what the test is actually measuring. You're going to start noticing these signals everywhere now. In meetings, in first dates, in conversations you thought were casual. Once you see the test, you can't unsee it. Subscribe. Every week, Mind Decoded breaks down one more thing about human behavior that almost everyone gets wrong. And if you want to understand why manipulation never looks like manipulation, that video is right here.